Well, joining us now here on the program as we take a look at what is happening in the fertilizer market, we welcome in our good friend Josh Linville, Vice President of Fertilizer at StoneX. He is with us here today. Josh, always appreciate the time, my friend. Thanks for joining us. I hope you're doing well.
Hey, we're staying ahead of it, just like always.
That's all that matters. That's all that matters. Of course, a busy time of year. Spring planting is rolling right along in many areas. I know we've had the delays in the Northern Plains and the Canadian prairies, and we may touch on that a little bit. But as we look at this fertilizer market, of course, that's a big part of our spring season. Catch us up. What's some of the latest that you are keeping an eye on here as we work middle towards the end of the month of May?
Yeah, it's for the most part, we've actually started to shift because once we get to this point of the count, there's really not much more we can do from our side. We can track and talk about pricing moving up or down or whatever it is, but for the most part, everything is behind us. We're starting to focus more on the summer. But I will say some of the bigger stories, urea nearby values have been shooting higher. That NOLA urea market had dipped down to 290. And since then, the highest that we saw was this morning. We saw a loaded sitting in NOLA bars trade at $475 a ton. A lot of this is due to two reasons. Number one, we think that the spring anhydrous run was less than what we expected, and we're not seeing that demand destruction like we saw last spring. So all that's got to flow over to urea and UAN. And the second piece of it is the imports are not as heavy as people let on. The market talked a big game about all these exports or imports that were going to come in. We got that data through March, and it was much smaller. And now all of a sudden, the market is starting to shift. And we're not going to throw out the term shortage. I'm done with that term. If I can get through the rest of my 25-year career in this industry without saying shortage again, I'll be happy. But it does create tightness. Tightness creates higher prices. So that's been going on. UAN has been holding steady. Phosphate and potash had a very good spring season. We feel like we drained a lot of the inventories, a very solid run. We actually, very late spring, we saw the prices jump up before they started to settle back down again. So it's been a very successful series.
Well, river levels I know have come back up. That's helped us to move fertilizer upriver for the spring season. I wonder, though, Northern Plains, Canadian prairies, we've had obviously the planting delays, but I know we've had some challenges in some spots to get product moved up the river to those areas. So what's your thoughts there? Has the delayed planting helped us get some more product in place here for spring application, Josh?
Well, we actually just opened up the Mississippi River north of St. Louis here in the last few days. We had still been seeing some of the lock locations dealing with major flood stage, which they can't operate during that time. It's too dangerous. There's too much water flow. We finally saw it dip below that major stage over the weekend starting yesterday. So barge traffic is finally resuming. They're finally starting to push product north. And to your point, a lot of those markets up there, they have been delayed. North Dakota really stands out as far as not having a whole lot of planting done. So, yes, that will give that product a chance to get up and get through the system, start to beat down that basis differential we had seen absolutely blow out. Because once the barges stopped, well, now you're more reliant on rail. Now you're more reliant on truck. And that price differential to NOLA really got wide.
Well, looking at some of the falling fertilizer values that we have seen here in recent months, combine that with falling commodity markets as well. So I know for farmers, as they look at those balance sheets and look at their margins and pencil things out, you talked about this with me quite a bit from the fertilizer perspective. Making sure you sharpen that pencil and make sure you know what your break-evens are is so key in this environment, Josh.
Yeah, and we just got done kind of doing our first stab at where we think the summer reset prices are going to get to. And across the board from where we're at today, we still see values going lower in the fertilizer market. And the farmers, your listeners, are probably sitting there saying, that's fantastic, we love it. It's gone hand in hand with the grain market because as of today, December 24, which is anything past June 1, I'm looking at everything in relation to that December 24 corn price. It broke below $5 today. For me, that's a major mental barrier to break through. So, yeah, I'm much more concerned about trying to call the low end of that relationship than trying to sit there and say, oh, I'm going to call the absolute low fertilizer the absolute high grains. I'm not that good. I'm not that smart. I'm not going to try and do that, but I know where value is.
I know as well, you mentioned this in your latest newsletter, we're watching Dutch natural gas values and also watching, some of these lower prices may be contributing to more plant restarts in Europe. What's the latest there, Josh?
Yep. So in case the listeners weren't aware, last August after Russia had shut off flows, the pipelines got destroyed, things like that, their natural gas market, the Dutch TTF, rallied all the way to $103 to MMBTU. and there was no way it's ever going to drop again. As of yesterday, I'm sorry, Friday closed business. I need to look and see where we closed out today. $10 in the nearby months. June, July, August were in the $10 range. The winter months, look in December, Jan, Feb, 16. And so we've been watching. We had a few plants that had turned back on, but there was still 30-40% that was offline. We had our most recent announcement as of yesterday. Yara had restarted one of their plants. Now it's an anhydrous urea plant, but it's a start. And the hope is if we see that plant start up, others will follow suit. And all of a sudden, they start to produce more of their own product. Now, all of a sudden, U.S. tons have been flowing into Europe will stop. Those tons will stay here. That weighs on price ideas. So, again, it's one of the situations where something, not halfway around the world, but a fairly decent jaunt away from where we are, things that happen there have a direct impact on where we're sitting today.
They definitely do have a direct impact. Well, Josh, as we look at the busy time of year, obviously, think about the summer months ahead, start thinking about fall. Any other thoughts you would share with folks? Should they be considering looking at getting some product for fall already after they wrap up their spring planting season and spring needs? I mean, what are some things, bigger picture, we need to keep in front of us here, Josh?
I am not going to sit there and say there's anything right now that excites me as far as something that we need to jump on. There's just a lot of things that I look at that's kind of had me on the bear side of the aisle. However, if I can give any advice, keep your eyes open. Don't go into this thing, because I know for a lot of the folks I talk to, we sit there and we look at the market. It's like, man, if I can just make it to July 4th, I'm going to eat too much. I'm going to drink too much. I'm going to blow stuff up. It's the American way. And I might just forget fertilizer here for a month or two. Don't do that. When these markets get like this, there are tremendous opportunities that pop up. Sometimes they only last a couple of days. Sometimes it's only a day. Sometimes it's only hours. So continue having that conversation with your retailer. Talk to them about what you're planning on doing and say, hey, I'm not ready to do it. Let's keep talking. When that opportunity pops up, I'm going to be nimble. I'm going to be quick. I'm going to be in here when we're ready to hit it.
Well, we appreciate the time and insight as always. With that, Vice President of Fertilizer at StoneX, Josh Linville, thanks for joining us here on Market Talk today, sir. We'll talk to you again soon.
Sounds like a plan.